Whether you're designing a single room, a full remodel, or new construction, a well-thought-out lighting plan can take a room from blah to ooh la la. Joining us today is Jim Meltzer from Connecticut Lighting Centers. Welcome back, Jim.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Nice to be back.
How important is lighting to a room?
Oh, lighting is very important. You know, if you think about it, you spend all this time and energy and money in doing this great design, and if you don't light it properly, you really don't get to see what you're doing.
That's true. And is that a difficult thing to do?
To light it? Not at all. In fact, if we want to talk about it, let's take a look at this typical kitchen. You've got a breakfast area, you've got an island, you've got countertops and cabinets. So we're going to talk about different kinds of lighting. You have general lighting and you have task lighting.
What do you mean by task lighting?
A good example of task lighting would be recessed fixtures. And recessed fixtures in a case like this would go, I'd like to use low voltage over the center of the island. I'd like to have some over the countertops, and then larger ones in the work area. So it's a specific task that you're actually accomplishing, and you're lighting it. There are areas that you shouldn't use recessed lighting. In other words, if you want general illumination, recessed lighting is not going to do that for you. If you are laying in bed and looking up, you don't want to look into recessed
Absolutely
lighting.
Not.
You know, so it does that. But other types of lights to add, I would put pendants over the island. I would put under cabinet lighting under the cabinets, and I would put a chandelier over the breakfast table.
Now, that again is an example of task lighting, or is that general lighting?
It's both.
It's both.
The pendants would be general. The chandelier over the breakfast table would be general. The under cabinet lighting would be a task light because it's lighting the countertops. And the recess lighting would be a task lighting because it's specifically lighting where it is.
Where shouldn't you have recessed lighting?
Well, again, like I said, I wouldn't want it over my bed in a master bedroom or in an area where I'd look up. I wouldn't want it on the other side of a paddle fan because the paddle fan spins and you'll get a strobing. And I wouldn't want it where I want a lot of general illumination in a room. I'd only want to use it where there was specific tasks in mind.
What about dimmers?
Dimmers are very important, and we'll talk about that when we talk about layers of lighting.
But you also provide all kinds of other services, and this is an example of that.
Correct. Doing a lighting layout where you'd bring me in the plan, and we would go through and design to what you want. I could make recommendations of what I think is best, but the end result is more important that it be what you want to be. Take like a typical dining room. You'd have a table in the middle usually, and over the table you'd have a chandelier. But we would want to do different lighting with different layers of lighting. And so what we would end up doing is we would add some recessed lighting around the perimeter, maybe some wall sconces, and lamps. Now that's where dimming would come important because layers of lighting have to be controlled. You wouldn't want to have lighting full blast.
Well, let's take a look at a photo that you brought of a dining room.
Yep.
And let's take, this is an example of layers.
Now look at the chandelier in the center of the dining room. It's a beautiful work of art. If you put really bright light bulbs, it would be extremely glary, and if that was the only light source in that room, you wouldn't get the beauty of the light. So we add recessed lighting that you see in the ceiling. We've added wall sconces that you see in the background, left and right, and you'll also note there's lamps on top of the table that's in front of the windows there. So now we take all of those and light them using the dimmers. That's what we were talking about. Lighting control is huge, whether it's a full control system or whether it's actual individual dimmers. So you can now take that beautiful chandelier that's in the middle of the room and bring it down to a very appealing level, and it now becomes a work of art that accentuates the whole design of the entire room. You can use the recessed light to do the task lighting that we talked about, and the task in this case is to be able to see what you're doing. And then the wall sconces and the lamps also can just add to the whole ambiance in the room.
Now, can you do this in a small dining room as well?
Any size room at all can be done in, absolutely.
Really? So you really shouldn't go with just one lighting source?
Lighting should always be done in layers, and whether it's just the light in the middle and a lamp, or whether it's as elaborate as having 4, 5, 6 layers of light. But very important to control them so the levels are correct.
All right, so the key to lighting any room, Jim, what would that be? So too many things to think about,
too much to think about there.
But definitely not just one lighting source. You should have layers.
There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. You know, things like, what are the colors? What's the size of the room? What's the height of the room? What are the surfaces? The carpet, the wallpaper, the drapes.
A lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with Jim at Connecticut Lighting Centers, they are located in Hartford and Southington. Jim, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.